Sonic Unleashed is a very weird game to talk about in the modern day, mainly because of how mixed this game was on release. I feel like you either loved the game, you liked it, or you thought it was the worst thing ever. And it's such an interesting game to talk about because of when it released. It released shortly after Sonic 06, when the manpower at Sonic Team was split in two, one half to finish Sonic 06 and the other to work on Sonic and the Secret Rings, with Sonic Unleashed being the next Sonic game to be a quote-unquote complete project where every person worked on it. So, did it do very well? Is it overrated? Or does it hold up? Well, you read the title of the video, you know what I think about it, but why do I feel that way? Let's get started with the story. The story begins with the best fucking cutscene in the entire series. I mean, what do you want from me? Like, people have gassed this cutscene up for years now. It's 6 minutes of absolute perfection. I don't know what else I can say about it that hasn't already been said. High up in outer space, Sonic and Eggman clash for the umpteenth time, with Sonic relying on the Chaos Emeralds to cause massive damage to Eggman's ships. Seemingly defeated, he begs for mercy, and Sonic, caught off guard, is lured into a trap where Eggman not only sucks the Chaos Emeralds out of Sonic, don't make a dirty joke out of that, where he uses the Emerald's power to power up his cannon, which blows apart the Earth into many different pieces, where he awakens Dark Gaia, an ancient entity which he believes has the energy yield in order to power Eggman Land. The energy surge creates a startling metamorphosis for Sonic, where from that point forward, when the sun goes down, he undergoes a transformation into his new Werehog form. Sonic Unleashed does a phenomenal job at setting the stakes high from the get-go. Sonic is defeated, Eggman has won, he has destroyed the Earth, awakened an entity of unparalleled power, and Sonic no longer has the Chaos Emeralds at his disposal. And it's for this reason that I think Sonic Unleashed has one of the best openings in the entire series, and if I could compare it to a game that didn't do very well, I would say Sonic Forces, where in that game Eggman does indeed win, but it's largely told to us rather than shown to us. In Unleashed, it's the exact opposite. We see every inch of his plan unfold. You don't even need to know who Sonic is in order to understand who he is and what he does in this cutscene. It truly is 6 minutes of perfection, and I don't think it's ever been beaten. Upon face planting into the Earth, Sonic meets a lovable new creature called Chip, who has no memories, surprise surprise, and Sonic, out of the goodness of his heart, decides to help Chip find his memories. Shortly afterwards, they run into Tails, who reveals that Professor Pickle in Spagonia knows how to fix the Earth and has a plan. Upon discovering that Professor Pickle has been kidnapped, the trio travel to Missouri in order to rescue Professor Pickle and the Gaia manuscripts. Our heroes then learn that this indeed is not the first time that the Earth has been split apart into 7 pieces, which indeed I could have told you that because of you played Sonic Advance 3. The Professor instructs Sonic to take each of the Chaos Emeralds to the respective temples listed in the Gaia manuscripts, where the planet's power will heal the Chaos Emeralds, and in turn the Chaos Emeralds will help restore the planet. From there, the story takes a back seat mostly, as the goal is pretty self-explanatory, going on a massive road trip across the planet whilst restoring it and meeting many different people in the process. It also helps create world building, as we know that the Earth essentially depends on the Chaos Emeralds and vice versa, creating and establishing a sort of symbiosis between them. We see snippets from Eggman's point of view, how he is indeed aware of what Sonic and Chip are doing, and he is accelerating his plans in order to harness Dark Gaia's energy. And honestly, these moments with Eggman are so refreshing, just seeing him chill in his evil lair concocting evil plans. It feels like it came straight out of a film, and I can't get enough of these moments. Upon reaching the 6th Gaia temple in Adabat, it is revealed that Chip is in fact Light Gaia, the antithesis and opposite of Dark Gaia, and as a result they have been fighting for billions of years and will likely continue to fight for millions of years after that. Sonic and Chip then travel to Eggman Land, the location of the final Temple of Gaia, and succeed in placing the Chaos Emerald there. However, they are too late as Dark Gaia awakens from the Earth's core. Enraged, Dark Gaia then drains the energy out of Sonic's Werehog form, transforming him back into his normal state and permanently depriving him of this transformation. Not that we freaking needed it, because Chip then turns into a freaking Megazord, using all of the temples of Gaia to create a giant bloody Colossus, and I imagine that the people at Sonic Team had a lot of fun concocting this idea. Dark Gaia transforms into his fully mature form, however Super Sonic and Chip are able to fully vanquish the beast. However, with Dark Gaia being defeated and the Earth being fixed, this unfortunately forces Light Gaia to return to his dormant state, meaning that Sonic no longer has access to his friend. After face planting into the Earth in conveniently the same location as he did at the start of the game, Sonic is given a final farewell from Chip, and then he doesn't run into the sunset. Haha, thought you would avoid that cliche. Sonic then goes for a run with Tails right beside him. I will keep it short and sweet. This is my favorite story in the entire Sonic series, and in nothing else comes close. The pacing truly feels spectacular, as everything is established right from the get-go, and everything that we need to know is established relatively early on. The story is not unnecessarily complicated like with Sonic 06, and it's also not depressingly lackluster like something from Sonic Forces. The story feels perfectly balanced. The story makes you laugh, and it also makes you cry. The story makes you smile when two characters have bonded over the course of their adventure, and most importantly, it makes you jump for joy when the final battle begins. When Sonic transforms, it is incredible. Part of the reason why this story succeeds so well is the characters, and more specifically, I want to talk about Sonic himself. This, in my opinion, is the best portrayal of Sonic from Jason Griffith, and also the best portrayal of Sonic we have ever seen in the franchise. Sonic Unleashed establishes that this version of Sonic is willing to chat shit with Eggman all day. However, it also establishes the more mature sides of his character, and even reveals insecurities he may be feeling under the surface. I'm not going to spend any more time talking about that CGI cutscene. Honestly, I could dedicate an entire video to it, and if you want me to do that, let me know. But we truly see and understand Sonic's unparalleled willpower and determination in this game. He faces unsurmountable odds and immediately jumps at the opportunity to help a defenseless creature. The world has broken apart into 7 chunks, and the stakes are very obvious, yet Sonic chooses to instead help out a friend. He does it out of the goodness of his heart. He gives him a fucking name, for Christ's sakes. Even when he transforms into an unsightly beast, he still maintains his composure and does what's right. One of my favorite cutscenes in the entire game is when Amy Rose charges at the werehog and immediately realizes it's not Sonic. Amy recoils and even hits Sonic out of embarrassment and then runs off, presumably to find what she believes to be the actual Sonic. Instead of making a wise joke or making a comment about how Amy is Amy, Sonic instead feels sad. He feels defeated, and this adds a layer of depth to his character. He truly feels down. When Sonic saves Amy later on, he is ashamed. He can't bring himself to look at her, and honestly, it just adds so much to his character. During the adventure days, and even in Sonic Heroes, Sonic was repulsed by Amy. He couldn't stand being near her, and now in Unleashed, you truly get the sense that Sonic cares for her, and he cares about what she feels about him. Fast forward to later on in the game, and it's revealed once again that Sonic's incredible willpower is the reason why he kept his sanity and composure when he transformed into the werehog form. It wasn't Light Gaia protecting him, he was protecting himself. And Sonic's budding friendship with Chip helps sell the whole experience, and nowhere is this found more than with the shorts that were made alongside Sonic Unleashed. Seriously, there was a lot of work that went into this game, and the friendship between these two was actually quite special. Sonic Unleashed has a relatively small cast of characters. Of the main Sonic friends, there is Sonic himself, and then there is Tails and Amy. Aside from that, none of Sonic's friends are present for Unleashed. However, it really doesn't feel like a problem when the friendship with Sonic and Chip feels very developed. Mike Pollock as Eggman is fantastic as always, and the fact that he has arguments with his own fucking inventions just never fails to crack me up. And Sonic Unleashed actually does something incredible by making me actually care about the NPCs, even characters that have one-off roles. The stupid assistant-looking guy who does an imitation of Eggman, the tribal guy who throws a rock at Eggman, the old man in Chun Shun Nan, who is clearly the leader of the village, and Professor Pickle himself with his massive freaking eyebrows. All of the NPCs in this game truly feel special, and while some are better than others, I can't help but care for them. As you explore different worlds and meet new people, it really heightens the stakes, especially for the endgame when Dark Gaia finally returns to his full power and covers the world in darkness. It truly feels as though your adventure has made a positive difference on the world around you. Especially since as you slowly restore chunks of the planet, the NPCs will move around. You'll find NPCs from one location traveling to another location. It truly makes the world feel dynamic, and this is something that the series has never done before, nor done since then. And whilst we're at it, let's talk about the hub worlds themselves. Hub worlds is something that is very rare for the Sonic series, largely because they will be relatively empty like the ones in Sonic Adventure, or they'll be unnecessarily huge like the ones in 06. As a result, the bar isn't exactly high, but nevertheless I do think Sonic Unleashed has the best hub worlds in the series. There's an absolute load of them, one for each continent, however they never overstay their welcome. The areas themselves are relatively small, but they have quite a lot of content. You have NPCs to talk to, you have collectibles to find, you have the Sun and Moon medals, and you can even find side quests. You can also take a step back to appreciate how much food there is in Sonic Unleashed. Seriously, every time I see Eggman's sandwich, I get hungry, man. Each hub world is split into two, what I would consider a story segment and a gameplay segment. The story segments are where you talk to NPCs, and the gameplay segments allow you to put your skills to the test and control the characters how you would in the stages. In other words, I feel the hub worlds are pretty fucking fantastic. So now let's tackle the gameplay itself, starting with Daytime Sonic, or Modern Sonic. This was Sonic Team's first attempt with the revolutionary boost formula in a 3D game. So how did they do for their first attempt? Simply put, they did a freaking fantastic job. Not only does Sonic move incredibly fast in this game, demonstrating what the Xbox 360 and PS3 were capable of at the time, controlling Sonic felt mostly okay across the board. However, I do have some issues. Sonic's moveset is a little more stripped down than it was in Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic 06, as he only really has the homing attack by default, as well as the boost obviously. However, he gains a few new abilities as the game goes on. The Stomp allows you to instantly stop on a dime, and it also allows you to press down switches. As for the wall jump, well, I mean, take a fucking guess what that does. The air boost is basically an upgrade over the homing attack, which I think works pretty well, but at the same time I wish you had both abilities. This is something that I praise Sonic Generations for, the fact that you have the air dash and the air boost. However, in Sonic Unleashed, you are restricted to just the air boost, and it also sucks how the air boost and the homing attack are on the same toggle, meaning if you're not careful, you can accidentally send yourself plummeting to your death. The final upgrade Sonic gets in Shamar is the Lightspeed Dash, which works basically how it worked in the previous games. With the press of a button, you charge along a trail of rings at light speed, and you can use it to straighten yourself up on water as well as find shortcuts. The final move to Sonic's roster was the drifting, which was a cool concept allowing you to make tight turns at high speeds, but in practice, well, it just wasn't good enough. The problem is that your handling was shit and Sonic moves so fast that your turning circle as a result was massive, and this is something that I feel Sonic Generations would improve upon. That being said, there were only a couple of moments in the game where the drifting was a legitimate issue, so I would still say it's passable, but it is something that the series would improve upon later down the line. As for the stages themselves, I truly feel like Sonic Team captured lightning in a bottle with these levels, as even to this day, they're my favourite levels for the boosting formula. Sure, they're not as expansive as the levels in Sonic Generations, and hell, even Shadow Generations, but at the same time, I just feel like these levels are phenomenal. They truly tick all the boxes for me. They're a fantastic length, have a great sense of speed, they're visually beautiful and distinct from one another due to all of the locations you visit. They're all completely original locations, and they don't reuse assets from previous games, which is also a massive thumbs up from me. But most importantly, they're just fun to play through, offering a good amount of challenge and also rewarding you for repeated playthroughs. Not to mention, these levels can be fucking hard, which is actually a refreshing change of pace, as recent Sonic games can be kinda easy. Sonic Unleashed makes you work for those fucking S ranks, and this is no more apparent than with the final level in the game, Eggman Land. Sonic Unleashed is easily the most difficult 3D boosting Sonic game in the series, however, I wouldn't call it unforgivable. Once you practice the game and master it, as well as learning the level design, everything sort of clicks. You learn the game inside out, and you truly appreciate the game's level design. Not to mention, these levels are very expansive with alternate routes, allowing you to truly appreciate these levels and also giving them a shit ton of replay value, which is something that was missing for me in games like Sonic Forces and potentially even Sonic Colors. But now we need to talk about the elephant in the room, and more specifically, the other side of the coin, as there is a lot of quote-unquote filler content that people don't really like in Unleashed. I'm sure you've seen these arguments all over the internet, the idea that Daytime Sonic is great, but everything else sucks. And, well, I don't mean to tell you that you're wrong, but yeah, you're freaking wrong. The true low points of the game that I don't really like are the tornado missions, but even then, they're not without merit. The music is really good, and graphically, they look pretty decent, and you also have an encounter with Eggman at the end of both of them. But at the end of the day, it's just a 3-minute long QuickTime event, and it happens twice in the story, once at the beginning and once at the end. It also just doesn't make much sense to me that there's only 2 of these in the game. Like, surely if you were gonna include them, go all out. Make it so that we have to fly and do one of these missions for each of the continents, kind of like how the islands worked in Sonic Rush Adventure, where you had to travel to each of them and do like a mini game in order to reach said islands. But it's kind of weird the way they handled it in Sonic Unleashed. But now moving on to the Werehog, and I'm not going to break down his combat too much in this video, as I have an entire video dedicated to his combat. However, I do want to talk about the levels themselves. As you're probably aware by now, these levels are a lot slower than the Daytime levels. They're more open, more expansive. There's a greater emphasis on exploration, platforming, and combat. And as I said, I went over the combat in another video, but I want to talk about the exploration. Simply put, I think that these stages are actually really well made. The common misconception thrown around the community is that these stages are far too long and they take far too long to complete. And I don't know about you guys, but these completion times don't look all that long to me. Hell, recording footage for this video, I replayed Eggman Land, and I completed it in about 15 minutes, and there's even people who have completed the stage in 10 minutes. And this is Eggman Land we're talking about, the stage that people say takes half an hour, yet people can beat it in 10 minutes. Basically, get good. The Werehog stages really aren't that long when you're just breezing through them and doing platforming and combat. However, the main reason why they take a while is because you are looking out for the Sun and Moon medals. And this is another complaint that I don't think is all that well justified, as whilst yes, the Sun and Moon medals are annoying, especially when you're railroaded into replaying stages to finding more of them to progress the story, I actually think it was a neat system in concept, especially since they give merit to the Werehog levels, since in the Daytime levels they require a higher skill ceiling, and as a result you'll pretty much blaze past most of the medals on your first playthrough. However, with the Werehog there's not as much skill ceiling, and as a result you can explore the levels at your own pace and find all of these medals that you need to complete the game. Not to mention, you just find more medals with the Werehog, since with Daytime Sonic you find 3 Sun and 7 Moon medals respectively, whereas with the Werehog you find 10 Sun and 6 Moon medals respectively. Not to mention that there's a variety of side missions, hot dog missions, and even alternate stages with Sun and Moon medals to be found, meaning that you really shouldn't be stuck grinding these medals for too long. And it baffles me even to this day that people come up with complaints of, oh, the Werehog doesn't fit in a Sonic game, even though in the adventure games we have treasure hunting, fishing, mech shooting, all of these crazy concepts, and people just don't bat an eye. Yet all of a sudden, when Sonic transforms into a new form with different abilities, all of a sudden that's crossing the line. What makes these stages all the more enjoyable for me is the music that plays in the background, and since we've opened this can of worms, we may as well discuss the soundtrack as a whole. Sonic Unleashed is my favorite soundtrack in the entire series, and for me, nothing comes close. The reason for this is because of how unique and distinctive it is. Every world in the game has 2 unique tracks for the hub worlds, one for the day and one for the night, and they both are appropriate for the culture and the instruments that might be used for music in said location. Not to mention there's different songs that play through the daytime and the nighttime portions of the stages, with the daytime music being faster paced and more energetic, and the nighttime music slowing down and being more atmospheric, creating a very vibrant, unique soundtrack that I can't get enough of. Sonic Unleashed, even to this day, still remains to be one of the most strikingly beautiful Sonic games in the entire series. Everything from character movements to presentation to the areas themselves, everything feels great. However, for many years, this was the Achilles heel of the game, as whilst yes, graphically the game looks beautiful, unfortunately this made the performance nosedive, especially in stages like Skyscraper Scamper and Jungle Joyride. Thankfully, this isn't an issue nowadays, as the Xbox Series consoles as well as PC emulators are able to run the game at 60 FPS, just like games like Sonic Generations, Forces, Frontiers, all the rest of it, and as a result you have a very beautiful Sonic game even to this day, running at fantastic frame rates. As a result, the biggest flaw with this game has been fixed on modern hardware. And now with its updated performance and phenomenal visuals, I think it's a good idea to explain why I think that Sonic Unleashed, despite being Sonic Team's first attempt at a 3D boost game, still remains to be the best example. Sonic Colors marked a new direction for the franchise, not only giving you new voice actors like Roger Craig Smith, but it was also an adventure set in space. It was completely unique, new levels that we'd never seen before. Sonic Colors for me was very much like Unleashed, but just not as good. As whilst yes, there was an abundance of levels within Sonic Colors, unfortunately the levels themselves were just not made to the same quality as with Unleashed. Sonic Generations was definitely a step in the right direction when it came to gameplay, as I think that the levels and controls are absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately they dropped the ball when it came to the actual story. Sonic Forces was a terrible video game overall because it had 3 gameplay styles and all of them felt subpar. Modern Sonic was terrible, Classic Sonic was the worst he had ever been, and the Avatar was just a worse modern Sonic with new abilities. Sonic Frontiers was clearly the start of a new direction for the series, as whilst yes, the open zones were relatively well designed, if a little bit generic, the actual cyberspace levels were very bland, reusing level aesthetics and hell, level layouts from previous games, and I understand that narratively that was the point, but reusing assets is still reusing assets. And Shadow Generations was just another Sonic Generations, but with a better story that revolved around Shadow. Basically, where I'm going with this is I think Sonic Unleashed has genuinely one of the best premises in the entire series. It has a fantastic identity, it has a shit ton of content that is very well designed, it has a beautiful soundtrack that is memorable and iconic in addition to being distinctive, 2 unique gameplay styles, and whilst the Werehog is very controversial, at the very least it was well made, even if it isn't to your liking, and the daytime levels is some of the most fun I've ever had in a Sonic game. Simply put, I think that this is one of the best games in the entire series, and I think that every game should focus to take what Unleashed laid out and make it better. Sonic Unleashed didn't rely on previous games to stand on its own 2 feet. Sonic Unleashed didn't rely on nostalgia to carry it. Sonic Unleashed didn't rely on previous level aesthetics to help give it identity. And Sonic Unleashed didn't rely on the franchise in order to have its own identity and to be its own video game. Whilst I wouldn't necessarily recommend Sonic Unleashed as your first Sonic game due to its difficulty, especially in the second half, I think the game is unique in that you do not have to play any other Sonic game in order to understand what's going on. However, by the end of the game, you will have fallen in love with the concept of Sonic as well as his world, and that is why I think that this game is the best in the entire series. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below, subscribe to the channel, and comment what you think on Sonic Unleashed. I look forward to reading your responses, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.